Hey everyone, you're listening to the Ask BP podcast, and today we're talking about how to save up for a down payment. Stay tuned.
You're listening to another BiggerPockets Ask BP podcast, where you'll hear short, direct answers to your biggest real estate questions. Submit your question today on Facebook, Twitter, or the BiggerPockets forums by using hashtag AskBP. And don't forget to pick up your copy of the Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing and other great content when you sign up for your free account at BiggerPockets.com. With that, let's get to the show.
All right, everybody, thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Ask BP podcast. Today's question comes from John from Wichita, and he's asking, how do I save up enough money for a down payment? I love this question. This is a struggle that I faced in my first year of attempting to invest in real estate. And the short answer is that there's no easy way to do this. It's a simple matter of hard work and persistence. And saving money for a down payment, just like saving money in general, comes down to two things: earning more money and spending less money. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things that I did to help save more money and earn more money in that year, and I'll talk about which ones that I think might be helpful for most people to focus on first. All right, before I get started, I really want to emphasize the fact that the amount of money you need for a down payment is going to vary depending on your location and what you want to invest in. In my case, I needed to save up almost $20,000 to buy my first property, and that was with an FHA loan that I owner-occupied. If I wanted to buy that same property and not live in it, I would have needed to save up about $50,000. That's here in Denver, Colorado. Out in the Midwest, some properties are available for as little as $50,000 or even $30,000. Using an FHA loan on those properties, you might need just $2,000 saved up. So this is going to vary dramatically depending on your location in the country and what your investing goals are, whether you want to live in the property as a house hacker, sort of like what I'm doing, or if you want to invest in a totally side investment property that you're not living in which case you might need to bring 20% to the table. So your timeline on saving up for a down payment is going to vary depending on what your goals in real estate are. So first off, I tried to earn more money by doing a couple of different side gigs after work hours. First, I drove an Uber. That was pretty easy because I lived closer to the downtown area of my city than I worked. That allowed me after work to just kind of pick up some passengers and meander my way while giving rides towards my home, and it lengthened my commute by an hour, but I made $30. And so that really helped. That adds up over the course of a couple of months, and puts another $500, $600, maybe $1,000 in your pocket if you're doing that part time. The second thing I did was I became a tutor. That helped me kind of teach some of the financial concepts that I was still learning at the time to a high school student, and that paid me an hourly wage as well on top of my Uber earnings. And the third thing you can do, which I also did, is go find a new job. Go find a new job that allows you to make more money or that allows you to earn bonuses, perhaps in sales, perhaps in a pay-per-performance setting. You're an entrepreneur. You're going to win if you get a job that pays you some sort of bonus on top of your base salary for hard work. And I think those three things really help you to earn more money, which is obviously one huge factor in the equation. The second factor in the equation, just as important and just as overlooked, is saving more money. And the first thing you can do there is cut out your silly expenses. Every day last year, for the first half of the year, I would go and I would buy lunch in the cafeteria at my old workplace. That was foolish. That just cost me, $8-9 a day and didn't taste any better than bringing my own lunch. And it took the same amount of time. So it was just very foolish waste of money. And everybody has those things in their life that are kind of just foolish waste of money. If you really dig deep and look at some of the things you're doing, I'm sure you can find at least one or two, big expenses like that in $20 to $50 to $100 a week that you can cut out of your budget. The second thing you can do, and that I did, was I focused on three of my biggest expenses in life. For me and for many Americans, those three expenses were my transportation budget, my housing budget, and my food budget. And I really cut back on all three of those areas. With my housing, I lived in a smaller place than some of my peers and some of the other people that were my age and in the types of professions that I was working in, and I also lived with a roommate. That allowed me to save hundreds of dollars a month and over $5,000 a year compared to folks in similar professional situations as me. Now, the next thing that I did was I cut back on my transportation expenses. I deliberately looked for new work that was closer to my apartment. That allowed me to start biking to work and cutting out commuting expenses. And then, if you want to repeat that process, there's two ways to do that. One is by moving closer to work, or two is by finding that new job and moving it closer to your home. And that'll really cut back on your transportation costs, in the form of gas, wear and tear on your vehicle, and then just plain old commuting time, which really eats up a lot of hours of your day. And we all know that time is money. And the third thing you can do to kind of save money is track your expenses. You're looking to save up money for a down payment on an investment property in real estate, you better believe you're going to need to track your expenses at that point. So aside from being just great training for your career as a real estate investor, you will definitely need to track expenses to kind of see where your inefficiencies lie in your own budget. You'll be amazed at how much some of your luxuries cost in your life, and you might rethink them when you track them and see them impacting your financials. I'm a big fan of starting with making the largest and most significant changes in the savings side of the equation for those of us just starting out. I think that there's generally more room to save money than there is to make more money for most of us in the workforce, at least when you start out. And I think that those savings actually are even more powerful than the earned income. So, for example, my extra Uber income and my tutoring income were taxed, right? So every dollar I made from those activities was taxed at, let's call it 20%. So I'm only making 80 cents on the dollar. But every dollar that I save, I get to keep. I get to keep 100% of that dollar, and it goes 100% to my next real estate investment. All right, so I think those are the two ways that you can save up money for a down payment. Again, earn more, spend less, and I provided some of the situations from my own background that allowed me to speed up my down payment for my first real estate property. All right, today's success quote of the day comes from a former football coach of mine back in high school days. He told me after a terrible game, Scott, prior preparation prevents piss-poor performance. It was a reflection of a bad week in practice, and it rung true that day, and it's rang true in a lot of the failures I've had in my life. I believe very strongly in planning and preparation, and when you plan correctly and practice correctly, the wins seem to just follow. All right, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ask BP podcast. I hope you got some value out of it. I hope that I help my own experiences of saving money and earning money on the side will be helpful to you. And remember, in pursuit of your goals, don't just learn, but take action. For the Ask BP podcast and BiggerPockets, this is Scott Trench signing off.
You've just heard another episode of the BiggerPockets Ask BP podcast. Submit your question today on Facebook, Twitter, or the BiggerPockets forum by using hashtag AskBP. And for more incredible real estate investing tools and education, including a free download of our book, The Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing, head over to BiggerPockets.com and sign up for your free account today. We'll see you on the next show.